Part 1 minus 1,000 word fast paced. Simple, clean explanation, story only, no headers. No analysis. Ethan Parker never imagined that one quiet evening could begin to change the direction of his life. He was 33, living alone in a small Seattle apartment that felt more like a waiting room than a home. Work filled his days. Silence filled his nights. And the world outside seemed to move forward without him. Friends had families. Others traveled, got promotions, planned weddings. Ethan watched from a distance, wondering how he had become someone life forgot to pick up. He was kind, gentle, intelligent, but he had grown used to staying in the background, always believing that love would arrive someday. It simply never did. When his old friend Oliver invited him to a small gathering, Ethan almost said no. Crowds made him nervous, and he wasn't in the mood to pretend he was fine. But something inside him insisted he should go, maybe out of loneliness, maybe out of hope. The night was cold, the city smelled like wet pavement, and the soft orange lights from the houses looked warm against the dark sky. Ethan walked to Oliver's home with heavy thoughts, but a quiet wish that the evening would surprise him. It did. Oliver's living room wasn't loud or packed. There were only a few people, soft music, warm lighting, and the smell of coffee and cinnamon. No one was trying to impress anyone. It felt calm, like a safe corner of life where strangers could breathe. Ethan relaxed a little. He sat near the bookshelf and listened to small conversations. He didn't know that two of the women in the room would soon become an important part of his story. Lena was sitting close to the fireplace, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Her eyes were gentle, her expression thoughtful, like she was carrying her own stories but didn't want to trouble anyone with them. She wasn't loud or full of energy, but her quietness had a warmth that made people feel safe. Her brown hair fell loosely to her shoulders, and her smile, though small, felt sincere. Maya was almost the opposite. She was bright, creative, and full of small laughter that slipped into conversations at the right moments. She had a soft scarf around her neck and a camera hanging from her bag, the kind of person who noticed the small, beautiful details in ordinary life. She talked to people easily and made even strangers feel comfortable. They were sitting on opposite sides of the room, but both noticed Ethan, not because he was loud, but because he listened. He asked small, thoughtful questions instead of talking over anyone. When he didn't speak, he smiled kindly, like someone who felt more than he said. People often ignored quiet men like Ethan. But Lena and Maya didn, single quotes T. Later in the night, a game of questions began. Nothing dramatic. Just simple things like favorite memories, places they wanted to visit, something they once lost and never forgot. When Ethan spoke, his answers were honest. He didn't try to impress them. He admitted he felt stuck, not broken, not sad, just waiting. Lena understood that feeling. Maya did too. Their eyes softened toward him, not with pity, but with a quiet recognition. They knew what it meant to be lonely in a world full of people. When the gathering began to end, jackets were grabbed, coffee cups were washed, and everyone thanked Oliver for hosting. Ethan slowly prepared to leave, expecting that the night would end like every other night. He would go home alone, replay conversations in his head, and wake up tomorrow to the same calm, empty routine. But he didn't want that. Not anymore. Standing near the front door, holding his car keys with shaky hands, he looked at Lena and Maya. They stood together, talking softly. His heart beat too fast, and he almost stayed silent. But he took a breath, one small moment of courage, and spoke. "Would you maybe want to meet again? Just coffee, all three of us. Nothing complicated." He was ready for polite rejection, for an awkward laugh, for excuses people usually give when they do not want to get closer. He waited, nervous, trying not to show it. Lena looked at Maya, and for a second, everything was still. No one expected Ethan to ask. He didn't seem like the type to make bold invitations, but what he offered didn't feel bold. It felt simple, honest, human. Lena's lips curved into a small, gentle smile. "That sounds nice." Maya's eyes lit up a little. "Yeah, I'd like that." Ethan blinked, surprised, unsure if he had heard correctly. They weren't just agreeing out of politeness. Their voices carried curiosity, a willingness to know him, to see where something small might lead. Phone numbers were shared not quickly or carelessly, but with care. There was no flirting, no expectations, no promises. Just three adults who felt comfortable around one another. Something rare in a world that often rushed past meaningful connections. On the drive home, the city lights blurred past the car windows. The cold air filled the streets, but Ethan felt warm in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. His heart wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't loud either. It was simply alive. His apartment didn't feel like a waiting room tonight. It felt like a place where a new story might begin. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, the way Lena listened, the way Maya laughed, the way the world felt gentle for a few hours. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't have a plan or a perfect idea of where this connection might lead. But he wasn't afraid. For the first time, it was simply hopeful. He realized something important. Loneliness does not disappear with noise or crowds. It fades when someone sees you, truly sees you. Lena and Maya had seen him, not as a background person, not as someone who was left behind, but as someone worth knowing. He didn't know how deeply the next days would pull them together, or how much this single invitation would change all three of their lives. All he knew was that he asked Han, they said yes. And sometimes a yes is all a lonely heart needs to start breathing again. Part 2, 1,000-word, fast-paced, simple. Clean explanation story only. Their first coffee meeting happened on a Saturday morning in a quiet little cafe near the waterfront. The place smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon, and soft music played in the background. Ethan arrived early because he didn't want to seem careless. He sat by the window, watching boats move slowly across the water. When Lena walked in, she offered a small wave, gentle and shy. A few minutes later, Maya arrived with her camera hanging around her neck, warm and cheerful as always. It felt natural, not uncomfortable or forced. They ordered drinks, nothing fancy, just simple choices, and started talking. At first, their questions were small. How was work? How was the week? But little by little, the conversation opened up. Lena talked about her job at a children's therapy center. She helped kids who had gone through difficult times, some shy, some scared, all trying to find their way back to trust. She didn't speak dramatically. Her voice was calm, steady. But Ethan and Maya could hear how much she cared about those children. It wasn't just a job. It was her heart. Maya shared her world too. She was a freelance photographer who believed every ordinary moment had beauty in it. She showed them a few pictures on her camera, simple things. A mother tying her daughter's shoes, an old man feeding birds, a couple holding hands without even knowing someone was watching. She loved capturing small emotions. And Ethan could hear warmth in every word she spoke. Ethan talked too, though less about achievements and more about life. He admitted he had felt alone for a long time. He told them he had friends, but no real place where he felt like he belonged. He didn't say it for sympathy. He just wanted to be honest. Lena listened, her eyes soft. Maya nodded, understanding more than words could explain. One coffee turned into 3 hours. 3 hours turned into laughter, stories, shared experiences. When they finally stood up to leave, no one wanted the day to end. So they didn't let it end. They walked along the waterfront, the cold wind brushing against their faces. Maya took pictures of the waves and boats, and Lena told quiet, funny stories from her childhood. Ethan felt like he had known them for years. After that day, meeting again didn't require effort. It just happened. Some days they had dinner. Some days they went for walks. Sometimes they simply sat together in silence, watching the city lights. They were not dating. They were not defining anything. They were building something softer: friendship, trust, comfort. Something rare. Over time, they learned each other's rhythms. Lena spoke softly, but felt deeply. She carried old heartbreak that made her cautious, but she still had hope. Maya was brighter on the outside, but some nights Ethan could see sadness in her eyes. like she was tired of pretending she was always okay. Ethan himself was gentle and thoughtful. He didn't rush feelings. He didn't expect anything. He was just grateful they stayed. But the more they grew close, the more the world outside started asking questions. Friends noticed. Coworkers noticed. People wondered why the three of them spent so much time together. There were whispers, small jokes, curious comments. Nothing cruel, but heavy enough to make Ethan worry. What if he ruined everything? What if one of them felt uncomfortable? What if his feelings were too much? He tried to ignore it, but the feeling stayed. He began watching the two women with quiet worry. When they laughed together, he wondered if he didn't belong there. When one of them was quiet, he feared he had said something wrong. He had finally found something good, and the idea of losing it scared him. One rainy afternoon, they met at the cafe again. Outside, cars splashed through puddles. Inside, everything smelled warm and sweet. They sat at the same table by the window. Conversation was normal work, plans, little jokes, but Ethan felt a knot in his chest. He didn't want to hide how he felt anymore. He didn't want fear to silence him, so he spoke. "I need to say something," he began quietly. "I don't want this to sound strange, but I feel something for both of you. I care about you. Not in a confusing way, just something real. I don't want to lose either of you." The words came out gentler than he expected. He wasn't shaking, just honest. When he finished, the cafe seemed silent. Rain tapped the window. People at other tables whispered. Lena stared at her coffee for a second, then lifted her eyes. Her expression wasn't shocked. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was calm. "Ethan," she said softly, "you don't have to be afraid of what you feel." Maya didn't smile or laugh. She just looked at him with steady eyes, the playful energy gone for a moment. "We feel close to you too," she said. "This isn't something we're confused about." Ethan breathed, surprised. He expected rejection. He expected distance. But instead, they gave him understanding. Lena reached out, resting her hand lightly over his. Not romantic, not dramatic, just a human gesture filled with care. "We're adults," she said. "Life is complicated. Feelings are complicated. But we don't have to run from them." Maya nodded. "We don't have to rush anything. We just keep going the same way we have together." There were no promises, no dramatic declarations, just honesty. That was enough. After that conversation, nothing felt uncomfortable. In fact, everything seemed lighter. They didn't try to define themselves with labels. They just stayed close. They cooked dinners at Ethan's place, watched movies, shared jokes, shared worries. Lena slowly let her heart open again. Maya slowly stopped hiding her sadness behind jokes. And Ethan started to believe he wasn't someone life forgot, he was someone two women trusted. Their bond didn't shock the world, but it surprised them. They didn't plan it. They didn't expect it. But some relationships don't need explanation. They only need truth, respect, and care. People outside still asked questions, but none of them mattered anymore. The three of them had found something reconnection that didn't hurt, didn't rush, didn't pretend. They were learning that sometimes love doesn't look like the stories in movies. Sometimes it looks like quiet evenings, warm coffee, shared silence, and to people who say, "We're here. You're not alone." Ethan never imagined a single invitation could create something so strong. But it did. And slowly, he stopped worrying about what might go wrong and saw what was already right in front of him. They had chosen to stay, and that was enough. Part 3, 1,000-word fast-paced explanation, story only, clean, simple, emotional. YouTube safe. Months passed, and the three of them settled into a quiet rhythm that felt natural and warm. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. They were simply there for one another in a way none of them had experienced before. It started with small things, shared groceries, evening walks, late-night talks when one of them couldn't sleep. Soon, it felt less like three separate lives and more like one steady circle where each person mattered. Ethan began to smile more. The loneliness that once lived inside him slowly faded. His days had color, not loud or dramatic, just gentle and steady. He cooked dinner sometimes, learning recipes so Lena didn't have to eat alone after long days at work. Maya filled the apartment with small pieces of art, photos taped along the fridge, prints on the wall, snapshots of sunsets and rainy sidewalks. Lena brought peace, Maya brought light, and Ethan brought comfort. Together, they formed something strong, even without naming it. Their connection wasn't about grand gestures. It was simple things, Maya falling asleep on the couch after editing photos, Lena reading quietly while Ethan brewed tea, the three of them laughing at old movie scenes. It didn't matter what people outside thought. Inside their world, everything made sense. But life, as always, tested them. One evening, Lena came over looking tired and sad. A family she worked with had moved away suddenly, leaving behind unfinished progress and broken promises. She didn't cry, but her silence said enough. Ethan sat beside her, offering warmth without asking questions. Maya made tea and placed a blanket around Lena's shoulders. No advice, no pressure, just presence. Lena leaned on Ethan's shoulder, letting the weight she carried finally rest somewhere safe. For the first time, she realized she didn't have to pretend she was strong every moment. She had found people who cared. Another night, it was Maya who struggled. A photography job fell through, leaving her anxious and frustrated. She felt like she wasn't good enough, like she was standing still while the world kept moving. She tried to hide her disappointment with jokes, but Ethan saw through it. Lena did too. They took her out to the lake where the sky reflected across the water like glass. Maya sat on the wooden pier, quiet and shaken. Ethan sat on one side, Lena on the other. When Maya finally let her tears fall, neither of them looked away. They didn't rush her or tell her to cheer up. They just stayed. Sometimes love is not about fixing someone, it's about sitting beside them until the heaviness passes. Little by little, trust grew deeper. They began taking small trips nothing far. A lavender field outside the city. A hidden bookstore that smelled like old paper and vanilla. A picnic near the mountains where the wind felt clean and the grass brushed against their clothes. They collected memories instead of promises. And every moment made their connection clearer. But there were still doubts, mostly in Ethan's mind. Some evenings after they both left, he lay awake wondering if he was enough. The world rarely told men like him, quiet, soft-hearted, gentle, that they were worth loving. He worried that one day Lena and Maya would realize they didn't need him, that he was only a temporary comfort. One night, those thoughts grew too heavy to carry alone. Lena and Maya had stayed late watching a movie, and when the room got quiet, Ethan spoke in a low voice. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Scared that one day you'll both realize you don't need me. That I'm just someone you're spending time with, not someone you truly choose." The room fell still. Maya paused the movie. Lena turned toward him with wide, soft eyes. Neither laughed. Neither looked confused. Instead, Lena reached out and held his hand, something she rarely did first. "We didn't join you because we needed a place to hide from the world," she said. "We joined you because you make the world feel safe." Maya nodded, brushing a tear from her cheek. "We're not here by accident, Ethan. We're here because we want to be." Something inside him loosened, fear melting, warmth returning. He realized he didn't have to constantly earn their place in his life. He already had it. As winter arrived, the three of them grew even closer. Snow dusted the rooftops, lights hung from every window, and the city felt quiet and peaceful. One evening, they went to the lake again. The water was dark and still, and the cold air turned their breath into clouds. Maya took pictures of the night sky. Lena leaned against Ethan, her coat brushing his. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. Ethan looked at both of them with a slow, thoughtful smile. "Are you happy with this? With us?" Lena rested her head against his arm. "I'm happier than I've been in years." Maya slipped her hand into his, her voice soft and steady. "We said yes once, and we say yes again. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just truth." Their relationship didn't erase hard days. Some weeks were stressful. Some arguments happened. Sometimes they misunderstood each other. But they learned to talk, to listen, to apologize, to forgive. They discovered that love isn't perfect, it's patient. It doesn't demand, it grows. People around them eventually stopped asking questions. Not because they understood, but because they could see the calm between them. It was gentle, kind, respectful, something real. Spring came quietly. The days grew longer, the air warmer. One afternoon, sitting in the park under blooming cherry trees, Maya looked at Ethan and said, "If someone asked you now, would you still say you're waiting for life to begin?" Ethan smiled. Not the small, nervous smile he used to give, but a full, peaceful one. "No, I think life finally found me." Lena laid her hand on his, and Maya leaned into his shoulder. Three hearts, steady and warm, sharing one small moment that felt like the beginning of many more. Ethan remembered the night everything started, the simple question, the shaking voice, the fear of hearing no. He realized everything beautiful that followed came from that one moment of courage. "I asked them to join me," he thought, and they did. Not because they had to, not because they were lonely, but because something real had been waiting for the three of them to find each other. Their story didn't end with a big wedding, a dramatic announcement, or a perfect picture. It ended with quiet joy, steady trust, and three people who chose to stay today, tomorrow, and every simple day that followed. And none of them ever regretted saying yes.